Who's they? Who are you talking about? Who's funding
The owners
these
of the world.
The owners of the world. Who's that?
The royals.
You know, we have royals in Britain. They're really not very powerful or impressive, and definitely not superhuman.
Yes, they are.
What about Harry?
Well, this generation is.
That's my point.
I wish he would toughen up a little bit. Get some balls there. Come on, Trump.
That is a critique of Trump that I have never heard, that he doesn't have enough balls.
He's got to get his balls back.
What? Where's it? Hang on. Really?
Boy, did I get off. I love hearing myself.
Roseanne?
Hi.
Thank you so much for letting us in your home, giving us your time. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be on your show. I enjoy your show a lot.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. You've had an incredible life, amazing work. You ran for president as a socialist.
Yeah.
You've changed a lot of things in your life.
I have, yeah.
You've been canceled like hell, all kinds of things. But tell us a little bit about your story.
What part?
Well, from the beginning, I guess. You grew up in Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Grew up in Salt Lake City, a really peculiar place. One of a kind. There's nothing on earth like it. I've been all over the place, and there's just nothing like it. It was a great testing ground for me. And I say because God has a sense of humor, he put my Orthodox Jewish family there in Salt Lake City, Utah, to kind of mold me so that I could become a famous comedian, I think, because I always had the stranger in a strange land thing going on and the outsider view, and just things that I noticed in that culture, the Salt Lake City culture at the time, which is way different now. And just try to deal with it, just try to accept reality for reality and not try to make any sense of it. But in jokes, you could make sense of it. That was the only way I could make sense of it, because it was just ridiculous. Like all of American culture is so hilariously ridiculous. And the jokes just write themselves. And in Utah there, they kind of wrote themselves. I had a very funny family and jokes were king. And if you told the right joke at the right time, like when my dad's fist was about here, and you could get out a good joke, he wouldn't hit you. If you could make Dad laugh before he slapped you in the head or whatever he did, it was a lifesaver. So I kind of learned that. And I just learned to funny my way through things. I always was the clown. But also I was very hermit-like. I like to live in my head. I like to be alone and think. I really like to think. And I still do like to be alone and think. It's fun to think. People maybe forgot how fun it is to think and to imagine and invent and create just in your own mind without any help from anything, any other people talking or looking up other people talking, but just to do it with, from your own life or experience by yourself. There's nothing more fun. And I just see, people I think they're afraid to be alone, to go there, because it's also stark and sometimes terrifying to have self-reflection and want self-reflection, because that's where good jokes come from. So comics, I think, by and large, are kind of isolated personalities with a lot of tics. But we like to write jokes and think, and not the way people think comics are.
Yeah.
I mean, some comics are party folk, but their comedy is different. I think the comedy is different from somebody who sits and thinks than somebody who parties it up.
Roseanne, you were in the Comedy Store in LA working with some of the greatest comedians of all time.
I know it. It's amazing to me. Amazing. Oh my God. I still can't believe it. That's a lot of thing I like to sit and think about. The people that came in and out of my life, that each one was a giant. And I was friends with these giants, you know, that, you know, it was an amazing thing. Yeah, the Comedy Store, I got to meet and befriend Richard Pryor and Dick Gregory and, oh my God, I'm forgetting everybody's name. Phyllis Diller, Rodney Dangerfield, Sam Kinison, Dice Clay. Just everybody in my generation of comedy. It's amazing. It's just amazing to me that I got to ask advice on comedy from Rodney Dangerfield. It's just amazing.
And what was Richard Pryor like? Because when you think about people who've changed the art form,
Yeah.
there's very few people you can actually say change the art form. Lenny Bruce originally.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce, yeah.
But then Pryor, it was pre and after.
Yeah, well, he's the one that made me want to be a comic, was Richard Pryor. When I saw him on the Ed Sullivan Show as a girl, I knew exactly what he was doing. And I look back at now and go, how did I know that? I wasn't that smart, but I just knew it. Without words, I couldn't explain what the words were that I was thinking, but I knew that I knew he was fighting from the inside out, not the outside in. And I went, I can do that. I could do that. And, you know, I look at what he did. I mean, he changed the country. He changed the culture. He changed the world. He really, really did, because he took on the stuff that America didn't want to talk about and just made it funnier than hell. And I would meet people, because I traveled the country, and I talked to a lot of people, and I would meet people who, when I was doing interviews and stuff, people who don't like Black people at all, you know, real racist types, and ask them who's their favorite comic. They'd say Richard Pryor. And I was, you know, kind of doing a study on the effect he had on American culture. And then I was also friendly with him. And I have a picture of him when he's very skinny and old, and he's on his way out there, and after he burned up, you know. And I was 8.5 months pregnant. I was huge. And he said, he wanted to take a picture and tell me to sit on his lap. And I go, if I sit on you, you will die even faster, because, you know, I'll crush you to death. He goes, no, you won't. And then I sat on him, and they took the picture, and his face in the picture, he looks like he's like, why would I tell her to sit on me?
And also Kinison as well is somebody else who changed comedy.
Yeah, he did. Absolutely.
I mean, when you talk about forces of nature, there was no one quite like Sam Kinison.
No, nobody was like that. Boy, he was a tornado, just a tornado. I saw a battle on stage at the Comedy Store between him, Harry Basil, and I think, to me, still one of the greatest comics I've ever seen that left comedy and moved to Israel. But he was just great, and his name was Jackie Diamond. That was his stage name. But he had the greatest act. He was only 22 years old. And I think Sam was jealous of him, and he kept on attacking him. And then he and Harry Basil turned on Sam Kinison on stage, and it was like a blowout fight, and people were running out, and it was just great. It was the greatest thing that happened at the Comedy Store,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting when you talk about those characters, they were wild people. They were
Oh, yeah.
genuinely wild. And I look at the
It
characters.
was all bipolar or borderline. Most comics are either bipolar, borderline, sociopaths or something. There's something wrong with all of us.
But
We're not normal people.
I quite agree, but it's also as well, we don't seem to be as wild as we were back then. Or do you disagree, or do you think it's a different thing?
Yeah, it seems it's different. People are more like, well, I've got to keep my shirt buttoned because, you know, somebody's looking at me and I might get a special, or they're always looking for the special or the show or, you know, the bump up, or, you know, I've got to be on my P's and Q's and I have to do comedy in this certain way. And you can see that they're working for, you know, a future in comedy, but not back then. Back then, it was like, burn the whole son of a bitch down. I don't care if I get paid next week. I'm here to just tear it apart. So it was different. And Paul Mooney was there too, he's the one that really laid the groundwork for Richard Pryor behind the scenes, because he wrote on all those Norman Lear shows, like Sanford Son, the Jeffersons, all the Good Times, all the ones that were, you know, the Black family. And he really laid the groundwork for Richard Pryor and wrote with him too. He was a great, great comic, one of the greatest. I just have to say that about Paul, and he was a good friend of mine too. But yeah, there were people then that wanted to burn down all the horrible bullshit. The comics that like, yeah, well, we're supposed to die like Lenny Bruce. That was it in our heads. We're supposed to be warriors that come out and do too much of everything and then die, you know, in our bathroom. Because that's the rock and roll of it. Just like people that were rock and roll stars that used to come to the Comedy Store and hang out. They knew they were supposed to party till they, you know, died when they were 27 of an overdose. It was just part of the culture. You were just going for it. You weren't like, let me plan my next special so that I can get another special. You know, it was just pure rock and roll to the bone, you know?
And what
it's
bullshit,
different.
What bullshit did you want to burn down, Roseanne?
Everything. Pretty much. I felt like it was my turn as everything that I am, every minority and hushed up gender and everything else. I was just on the verge, and I told you I was very political. I was in a women's commune at the time when my kids were little, and you know, we were fighting for stuff. You know, we were fighting. You know, we were radical feminists, and so we were fighting for social change and change in laws too, like the Equal Rights Amendment was one of those things, which went by the wayside, by the way. But you know, and I was like a hippie, you know. In the 60s and 70s, I lived on a commune up in the mountains of Colorado, and so I had that, whatever it is, that just, you know, want to go to shop at Goodwill and, you know, write a poem that pisses people off, wash dishes for $50 a week, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So, you know, a working class tumbler, like to get in fights, like to go on top of the place I worked in Georgetown there, when they'd have the skiers come down, the big Aspen skiers would come down there, and we worked in a big bar that had a dance floor and bands and all kinds of stuff. And they'd come for their après ski, as they called it. And we were just resentful, horrible, like, you know, scroungers from dirt poor and working in there. And so we'd go up on the roof and shovel down huge amounts of snow on them while they was waiting in line there. Just horrible people doing horrible hippie, dirty hippie shit.
It's interesting because you say you've always been political, and coming from that sort of worldview, you've ended up in a different place.
Well, yeah, I'm 72. Hopefully you grow up somewhere along the way, you know.
And is that how you see it? That kind of hippie phase was being young and naive and kind of a bit dumb, and now you've wisened up?
Well, I mean, I was also like, I had a lot of mental health issues. It wasn't just, so I was always fighting a war inside, you know, and it always led me to put myself in unsafe and dangerous places. And I lived a crazy, ridiculous life. Like on my way to work, I had hitchhiked to work. It was 3 miles. And on my way to there, I go, fuck it, I don't want to go to work. I'm going to New York, and go. You know, with no money, no shoes, nothing. Thank God I lived. But there were some scary times there where, you know, I always say, you know, people go, how come you got so much swag on stage? I got swag because I had talked my way out of getting killed a number of times in my life. So, you know, that's where my swag comes from. But that was all just dirty, hippie, street fighting, working class shit that I did as an Orthodox Jew in a Mormon neighborhood. Just crazy shit. But yeah, then I got in this women's collective and saw things started to change when Reagan was elected. 1980, things were changing. Like, first of all, I never had seen any homeless people. And I worked on Colfax Avenue. Our bookstore was called Woman to Woman Bookstore. And we had within our bookstore, thousands of books written by women all over the world. Socialists, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would come in there to check out books and buy books and stuff like that. But I lived on Colfax Avenue. I mean, we worked on Colfax, and I had never seen any homeless people because we had that social safety net. And by 1981, sitting there at my perch at that woman's bookstore, I started to see all these old women on the streets with no place to go. And I was shocked that that was happening in America. And we tried to help. We tried to rent a building next to us because we thought, well, there's, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 of them. We can give them a bed. We can rent a place on our bookstore, and they wouldn't have to be homeless. And then it just was everybody. When Reagan shut down mental health problems, and then it was just all the violent, schizophrenic people that weren't being treated all over that same street. And I was like, what are you going to do about this? So I started writing and getting in trouble, you know, in independent magazines and saying things. And, you know, always a big mouth, I always want to poke the bear.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to go want to do comedy. I was also, at the time, a cocktail waitress. So it's like kind of evident of the fact that I had lived many lives at once because I had a lot of different parts to myself. And one was, you know, part of me was a cocktail waitress, part of me was a brawler, part of me was a housewife, and part of me was a revolutionary writer, and part of me wanted to be a stand-up comic. And I did all of them at the same time, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I never needed any sleep. I would sleep like 4 hours a night and I was great because I was, you know, dealing with severe mental health issues that I didn't even know I had. But they all end up serving me. I mean, I went to therapy for 15 years to integrate my sides and parts, and it all ended up serving me really well that, you know, I can bake a hell of a pie and write, and I can cut grass, and I have it in one life. Now, I remember doing it. I have integrated my parts, and I think, you know, it's after a lifetime of trying to heal and trying to get better. And, you know, I did it. So, of course, I always say if I could do it, anyone can. It was long and hard, and doing the sitcom in the middle of it. I don't even remember a day of it anymore since, you know, all the trauma I went through of that, but I just let it go. I let everything go to go to a new place where the only thing that matters is being happy every day. So I never knew any of that crap when I was coming up. I never even knew what being happy was. So yeah, I've learned a lot, but I'm old.
Let's be honest, this economy's been brutal. Mortgage, childcare, energy bills, and for a lot of homeowners, credit cards have become the fallback. But with interest rates upwards of 20%, that debt piles up fast. That's where American financing comes in. They're not your typical lender. They're family owned, have been around for 25 years, and are licensed in all 50 states of the United States. No board, no investors, just a team focused on helping you save. Their mortgage consultants are salary-based, so they won't push a loan that doesn't make sense. And there are no upfront or hidden fees. You won't pay a dime to find out how much you could save. And the savings are real. Homeowners working with American Financing save an average of $800 a month. They look at your full financial picture, credit cards, car loans, mortgage, and see how you can reduce your total payments. They've already helped hundreds of thousands of Americans. Just check their Google reviews. So take 10 minutes, call 866-886-5350, or go to americanfinancing.net/trigonometry. Start feeling that relief today. That's 866-886-5350. Well, you mentioned writing and the sitcom. It was one of the most successful sitcoms in history.
Yeah, it still is. It's the most, I think it's in the top 3 sitcoms in 150 countries still, which allows me to live so well. You know, I get residuals from it. And it's still the #1 rated, what do you call it, rerun in several countries.
Why do you think that is? What does it hit? What is it about it that people connect with, do you think?
It's just about everyday life and real people and, you know, the fight inside and the fight outside. Everything's about that to me. And sometimes they come up against each other and sometimes they congeal and they're the same thing. And then you get a big bang for your buck. But I think just that it was about regular, imperfect people who love each other, even though sometimes they can't stand each other either. Just like regular families. You know, I wanted to show a real family that I grew up with. They were all flawed, but, you know, they'd all have, even if they were horrible, there would be some kind of underlying connection there, even if it was backward and hideous, you know, where people choose to stay. Your vote is where you stay, you know. I think that's something noble about people.
Roseanne, I'm looking at America now. It's in a strange place, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. I think we came this close to losing our country. How far was that bullet from that ear? We came less than an inch away from losing our republic, our Constitution, our way of life, our lives. Yeah, I think we're in a real weird place. But thank God, I think the right thing happened. To me, it's that, you know, I see it through my own goggles, but I think it was a good thing that America said, no, we're not going any further down this road. And I was as vocal as I could be, knowing so much about the left. And I was as vocal as I could be to say, hey, you know what, when you really disrobe it, it's an ugly friggin' corpse. It isn't that pretty young body.
What do you mean by that, Roseanne?
What, the left thing?
Yeah?
Well, it's a mind control program for one thing. Just like the far right is a mind control program. You know, I say that it's very authoritarian and looks at any kind of dissent as damnation. And I include churches in this too. There's no dissent, and there's a lot of self-righteousness which allows you to discard the human rights of other people who don't think like you. So it's a grotesque arrogance that's inhuman with a sneer on its face. And 3, it has a loathing for Jews. So those 3 things are the same 3 things that make up fascism, and they're just Nazis. The left are Nazis, and the far right are Nazis too. And that's my humble opinion, living 72 years. They get paid from the same people, and I really would love to see some disclosure on that. If there are any, I know a lot of anons, and I have for a long time, and I'm like a non-anon, because I research. And I'd love to see where these people who are trying to destroy our culture and our country with their anti-Semitism, which is a tool of power. And, you know, they already destroyed the Democrats with it. And that's why I thought the vote for Trump was a rejection by Americans of anti-Semitism. And now they're trying to take down the right with it. But I'd love to see disclosure of these mouthpieces that the Jews. I like to see who sponsors them, because I'm damn sure it's the same on the left as it is on the right. But the sad thing about the anti-Semitism stuff is that is how you destroy a republic, particularly a Christian republic. That's how you destroy it. And I hate seeing that happen here, and it terrifies me. Because I like that this is a Christian republic, because Jews do really well and are protected in Christian democracies all through history, with some bleeps. But some
could call it that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but then you have to look at what happened. They overthrew the republic to get to the Nazism. And I don't want that here. And I think that that's what they're working on.
Who's they? Who are you talking about? Who's funding
the owners
this
of the world.
The owners of the world. Who's that?
You want me to say who the owners of the world are? This is where everyone starts asking me. I love this, that you would ask me that. I might have to have a cigarette. It makes me nervous to say who they are. First of all, I've been saying it for 30 years, and people, when I tell them, their eyes just go dead, because they cannot handle the truth. Remember that Jack Nicholson movie? You can't handle the truth. You don't want it. But it's so obvious that I just will say it. The owners of the world are the royals, kings, queens, dukes, duchesses, imams, popes, wizards that own every single dime on earth and bank at the Bank of International Settlements. That's the owners of the world who decide every war and arm both sides, because they make money. They're arms dealers. They're Nazi arms dealers. They also make prisons. They also make, poisons. They're invested in depopulation. The WEF, WHO, all those bullshit things out of the UN, they need to depopulate this planet of useless eaters, which they call us, because they have no place to ride their horses. And conduct their fox hunts or their people hunts or whatever it is they do that we all really know about but ignore. The reason that the vampire stories are so popular, take a look at that too. It's evil incarnate, and the owners of the world embody it. And the world is going exactly like they want it to go. like they planned it for generations to go.
Rosa,
And I intend always, as a Jewish girl, to be a wrench in that works. I want to be. What? Boy, did I get off. I love hearing myself. My kids won't listen to me anymore, so I have to do interviews so I can tell people how I feel. Nobody listens to me. But yeah, kings and queens, okay? Does that like register that people who are superhuman exist in our gestalt? We go, oh, the royals. There's going to be a royal wedding. The royals, they have royal blood. They've handed down their royal blood and they've owned everything for centuries because they're royals. They're royals.
You know, we have royals in Britain. They're really not very powerful or impressive and definitely not superhuman.
Yes, they are.
What about Harry?
Well, this generation is.
That's my point.
No.
They're fucking useless.
But they're not useless because they still, okay. I see what you mean, and I don't disagree because after the Queen died, it did change.
yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, it changed with Trump. But I don't know if you know all this stuff, but anyway.
I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Well, other people say it better than me because I can't remember dates and stuff like that. But and this will sound crazy, but you should listen to other people who put it better than me about how we came back under the control of the British Crown in the late 1800s and how we still are. And so is Canada. Little more than colonies till Trump. Our tax money goes to them. The bar, the American bar is the British accredited whatever. We are still under the control of the City of London and British UK power.
I so wish that was true.
Yeah. I'm looking around at what the UK has become.
You have no idea how fucked that country is.
No, I do know it's fucked, but it's not totally fucked.
I hope so.
We want the good parts of it not to be fucked.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what we want. But the bad parts of it are fucked now. And there's going to have to be a huge change. And the people are going to have to demand it. And it's the same here. But up until the part where everybody went, hey, this is fucked, it was really fucked.
Yeah.
They were allowing grooming and rape gangs, and the police were protecting them. You know, and the BBC and even back to Margaret Thatcher, they were protecting the worst elements in the world. And I mean, I don't want to say too much about the Epstein thing, but that was also, they had a royal.
They did.
Helping them do that. So it may not be apparent, but also when you say the royal family, you have to say Standard Oil.
Standard Oil, like the Standard Oil. My grandfather used to work. This probably shouldn't be the right person.
Of course he did,
yeah.
mate.
But I mean, the British, whatever kingdom,
Yes.
they want to make a big comeback.
Of
They
course.
want all that oil, so they're not powerless. They want all the oil in the world, and they pretty much will get it wherever they're going to go. But if they have to partner with China and Iran and Venezuela, and they'll do it. They don't care about their country. They're globalists. Look at Prince or King Philip or whatever his friggin' name is.
King Charles. Yes.
He's nothing but a low-life globalist. He's supposed to be the head of the Church of England, right?
Yep. Yes, indeed.
I won't go into more of it, but
Come back to your political journey, because you don't sound like someone who's still a hippie in a women's commune. You, as I alluded to earlier, you've kind of evolved over time.
but I am. I knew when I was a hippie in a woman's commune that, that the owners of the world, the royal classes, the privileged classes, were fake. And, probably me and my sister used to play the Queen of Russia versus the Queen of England, because we have Russian background, Lithuanian too. And so we'd always have a war between those two queens, because they weren't human to us. They were superhuman. They were queens.
Yeah.
But we'd say, she's nothing but trailer trash. Look at her kids. We'd say that. But we've accepted that we have owners. We have accepted, and that's why I said it that way. We've all accepted, oh yeah, we have owners. The deep state, the royals, whoever pulls turns the switches and pulls the buttons that take away everything we have. We know we can't do nothing about it. We all know that. I mean, we can squawk and make a fuss, but then like in Canada, they'll just cancel your bank accounts if you protest too much against them. They're a huge, in power network of money and slavers and people who don't mean well for the rest of us. Everyone should know that much, but they don't. They think, oh yeah, if I met the Queen, she'd be real nice to me. I don't know. It just drives me crazy, because people can't clearly see how enslaved we are mentally, psychically, spiritually, and physically.
What do you mean, Roseanne? Enslaved how?
In every possible way. Less so here in America now, but we were really headed for it. And if what's-her-name had won, I'd probably be in prison.
Really? Why would you have been in prison?
Because I would have said something nasty about the Democrats.
Do you really think that we would have been at that point where you would have said something nasty about the Democrats and that would have mean a prison sentence?
I wouldn't doubt it. Depend on how brave I got. Yeah. There's already putting everybody else in prison.
How do you mean?
Have you heard about Tina Peters being in prison, a Gold Star mom who actually just did her job in Colorado with the voting machines, and they imprisoned her. They've imprisoned a lot of conservative grandmas who spoke out and didn't agree with the vote tallies. They went into prison too, and they're just gulags. I mean, this country, we are, in my opinion, this is a Marxist revolution. It's a color revolution, and they almost won.
So when you're saying a Marxist revolution, you mean that they want socialism in the United States of America?
No, socialism, I was all for socialism. I'm all for a safety net and things that people aren't forced to do.
Of course, but what I mean by socialism is abolishing capitalism, not having things like a welfare state or free to enter healthcare systems, and I don't see that as socialism.
Well, I think socialism is a huge grift. I think it's the opposite side of the coin as vampire capitalism, because every time they build up a bubble, Marxism comes along and the bubble bursts, and then the richest people move in and buy everything for pennies. So I think they work like this, and even Marx says that. He was hired to write it by a capitalist. He was hired to make up Marxism by a capitalist. And, I won't even go into that, but the fallacy of Marxism is being a feminist. The French feminists wrote a critique of Marxism in the 60s, which said, Marxism doesn't even count the unpaid labor of women. That's why it's bullshit. It's just another scam, another grift to rob the poor and move money up to the rich. And that is what it does. That's what COVID did.
Yep, agreed.
And that was by Marxists in our government and one world globalists through the WHO and all that shit. They had it all planned. They just care about money and nothing else. Wherever there's money, that's where they go and get it.
We've had our fair share of chaos on the show, from tech issues to unexpected interruptions mid-interview. But when it comes to running a business, chaos isn't a joke, especially with shipping and fulfillment. That's why ShipStation exists. If you're running an e-commerce business, ShipStation simplifies everything. One login, one dashboard, total control. We recommend ShipStation to other podcasts with merch operations because, honestly, it just works. The automations save us hours. The rate shopper finds us the best shipping prices, and we never worry about fulfillment slowing us down. Whether you're selling from a Shopify store or a custom setup, ShipStation connects with all your platforms, finds the best shipping rates, and even updates customers with branded tracking emails. No matter how big your business gets, ShipStation grows with you. It's why 98% of companies that use it for a year stick with it for life. So calm the chaos and start shipping smarter. Head to ShipStation.com and use code TRIGGER for your free trial. That's ShipStation.com, code TRIGGER. When you talk about the Democrats, one of the things I always found very sinister was these very, very progressive policies and values that they put in. And the moment you started to question or challenge that, that would be framed as hate speech.
Right.
And
well,
racist.
They had it all sewed up.
And it became like a game of chess. But you didn't realize when you were playing the game with them that they were playing something else entirely.
I know what they're playing. It's a grift because all their USAID proved it too. And I've been saying it for a really long time. Everybody goes, oh, you're crazy. Okay, whatever. I don't even care if I just pity them that they can't even see. But as they were grifting the American working class's tax dollars for their fake NGOs that go back to them, all that money, they were all socialists. It's just a grift to get them paid. They don't do a damn thing. Hillary Clinton built 13 houses or 30 houses in Haiti with those billions. It's a grift to get the money laundered and back in their pockets. And I've said it for a long time. And I saw it firsthand as a candidate for president. They are taking public money and putting it in private pockets. That's what the left is all about. That's what Marxism is all about. That's what their socialist horse is all about. Nobody sees any of that money. Nobody in the real world sees any of it. They do because they're privileged, grifting, lying criminals. That's what they are. They're a class unto themselves.
And you sound very relieved that President Trump won the last election.
Hell yeah, I prayed for it every day for 7 years or more. I've done everything I could to help him be, for him, because I know exactly what needs to be done, and he's doing it. And I wish he would toughen up a little bit, get some balls there. Come on, Trump.
That is a critique of Trump that I have never heard, that he doesn't have enough balls.
He's got to get his balls back.
What? Where's it? Hang on. Really?
I've told him that myself many times, in person, eye to eye.
What do you think he needs to do that he's not doing?
As I've said over many years, where's the fucking arrest of these criminals that were traitors to our country and to our troops and to our people? I think it's a traitorous act that our Congress is allowing our veterans to sleep on the street. That is traitorous. And they should be charged. They should all be punished. People should be called out for their being traitors to our troops and our people and our parents that sent their kids over there to fight and die for this country. And then the first thing that happened when I was running for president, I said this, isn't it funny that the single mothers of the heroes that went to fight in overseas, they're the first ones that lost their houses. They're the first ones because of that grift, that fake bubble Marxist burst grift. This is a whole new time now. So I'm talking about the past and how I used to see it. Now that I'm an old woman and, you know, I'm more calm and I'm less angry. Har, har, har. But I mean, I see we're moving through space at such speed to, I really think, a golden age. And I just have to remember, let the past go. Don't be so angry. Yeah, we know it happened. We saw it happen. We saw what they did to Trump. I saw what they did to me, which was all bullshit. But I feel like they were experimenting on me to do it on to Trump and all the other people they did it to. So many people lost everything for saying they don't like Democrats. But now it's all over. It's a whole new time. And, you know, I just wish it would come faster. I'd like to see one huge arrest after all this time of saying, you know, fake dossiers, fake FISAs, fake spying. How come nobody's arrested? Let's see one arrest. Come on, Trump. Let's do it.
And you mentioned your cancellation. That was, first of all, just grotesque in the way that what you said was misrepresented.
Totally, by ignoramuses. That's what was so fantastic. When, you know what they say, you can, you know that book, and it's, I can't remember who said it, but it's like, you can tell the greatness of a man by the confederacy of dunces who come against him. I just said that in my head over and over, because it was a confederacy of dunces who had no geopolitics whatsoever, knew nothing about the Iran deal, knew nothing about Israel, knew nothing about my decades old defense of my own people and our history, to say what they said that I said. I mean, it's just duncery to the, you know, just duncery. And they couldn't congratulate themselves enough. And I was always going, pretty soon America is going to know what I meant. And I thought it was about a year away, maybe. Now it's 7 years, and nobody still knows. It makes me mad. Makes me mad, but I see glimmers of it. I see glimmers of where people go, aha! Oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, well, you weren't allowed to, because it's never on any media. It's not allowed to say those things. But now I'm seeing people come up on the internet and actually talk about the Muslim Brotherhood and how they have infiltrated our government and how many people have died for saying that. And that's why I got canceled. It was not, they say, it was because I said black people look like monkeys. But no, it was because I said Valerie Jarrett is the Muslim Brotherhood. That's why. And I just pray for the day when people get it. And some are getting it. Some were getting it back then and they end up dead. Whistleblowers. I wish I could remember his name because he was a great American. A lot of whistleblowers, a lot of dissenters. Prison, just like in the Soviet Union, like the Stalinists here did. I mean, the January 6 people, that was a gulag. And they just loved prison, imprisoning dissenters and whistleblowers and thinkers and ruining everyone else's life by, you know, stepping on their face with their jackboot, like they did me. They're jackboot-wearing Stalinists. So they're the best of both worlds. And if you know about World War II history, You know that Stalin and Hitler were in a competition, and we're never allowed to know that. But they were in a competition, and there was a Hitler-Stalin pact. And that's what we've got here. We got them all working together in bed with each other. All of them. And the one thing the few things they don't like are the things we like our Constitution, and women's rights, and children's rights, and rape activism. They don't like that much. They were coming at me for a long time with that. It's as evil as you could imagine if you were the most paranoid person on earth, and even worse.
Roseanne, you know...
you're like, Roseanne, you're not funny at all. You don't know why we came here.
No, you are.
I get too jacked
You're hilarious. But, so when you talk about the left and the socialists and whatever else, you're talking about it as we're going to a different place now.
And their buddies.
And their buddies. And
the
I agree with you.
fascist Nazis.
Yeah.
They're best friends.
Yeah. But there's
with
also...
the Islamists.
Yeah. I mean, you don't...
They're all in bed together.
You don't need to talk to me about the, or both of us about the Islamists. We've seen it in our own country and the terrifying impact that is having.
But it's very different from Islam.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an extremist interpretation
Right.
of that particular religion.
They're like the trans activists of
They're a bit
Islam.
more aggressive.
Well, after all these Tesla places are burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're training our malcontents
Yeah.
to get like them.
But I see the people on the right, and there are certain elements of that, and I'm seeing them come back in. Some people, look, there's a lot of good
Come
Christians.
back in where?
Like, as in coming into power, you know, people on the religious right, not all of the religious right, not all Christians, but there's a certain element of them, I think we can all agree, and they're looking at things like women's rights and, you know, gay rights and going, yeah, we're gonna roll back on that.
Yeah, I don't
one.
want to live in a theology. I don't think that a Christian democracy has ever been a theological Christian place. It had different thing. It was, had, disparate members and groups that were under, the protection of the state, because equality was one of the things, justice, equal justice under the law. But they don't like any of that. They want a jizya tax, or probably they probably want to put on a gender tax out. It's just a grift. They just want the money. But I'm sorry, I forgot what.
No, we were talking about elements of the religious right that want
Yeah, I don't want an American theology.
Yeah.
And I backed away when I heard some of people that I thought, we were talking about our constitutional republic and our Constitution, okay? Because that's a perfect document that doesn't need anybody with it.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be with. But when I would hear that stuff, I'd be like, count me out, man. I'm not into that. I'm for common sense. Main Street, the wide middle.
Yeah.
That's what my show was about, the wide middle. It didn't go left and it didn't go right. It stayed right in the middle where America needs to go. Because the middle way is the wide way, because it's the right way.
And that's the challenge, really. And I think it's not just America. I think it's every country, that we don't go too far to the right and we don't go too far to the left.
Yeah.
And that we have because the majority of us are quite happy being here.
Right.
But we have these radical factions on either side who are always trying to drag it left and right.
Well, that's what I said when I first was on my show, in the late 80s, early 90s. I felt like I was bringing things a little more left because they were too far right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came back, I thought they were way too far left, so I was bringing them a little more right, because I always am aiming for the middle, because that's America, the middle. And what's horrible about what I've seen is that when I saw this for a long time too, when you have the far left and the far right, these two what's the word?
Extremes?
Yes, extremes. They managed incredibly because of how they manipulate the media and everything. They managed to I can't think of the word. I'm so bad on words these days. They managed to I can't think of the word, and I need the word. Marginalize
Yes.
the vast middle.
Yeah.
These guys marginalized the voters and the middle. How in the hell? Neither of them has a future. It can't go nowhere. They end up going, back on themselves, which hopefully would be good if they all got on each other, but they never will because useful idiots never attack each other. But they did it. I couldn't believe that they had marginalized the American people. It really bothered me.
And are you excited now? Do you think that that return to the middle is possible now? You don't seem very excited.
Gentlemen, there's a new standard in grooming. The white hot lawnmower 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped doesn't just look cool, it's built for precision and comfort, especially where it counts. It's got skin-safe tech to help reduce nicks and a dual blade system that handles business better than most politicians. It's waterproof, it's sleek, and it's got a built-in light so you're not guessing in the gloom. There's a reason we've been working with Manscaped for 3 years now, and it's not just because they pay us. Manscaped are the best at what they do. The quality of their products and customer service standards are second to none. Go to manscaped.com, use code TRIGGER15 and get 15% off your first order. That's TRIGGER15 at manscaped.com. White hot looks, smooth results. Leave the burns to the sun. That last bit doesn't flow, but we'll do what we can.
I think it's possible, but the thing and I'm hopeful, but without facts, you can't get nowhere. Without actual facts and data and truth, you can't go back to the real. You can't live in a big world of lies, and it's just hard to find truth that you go, I know this is true. And I think I do because I read and I talk to many, many people, but for the average American who doesn't have time to do all that, they're not old and, have time on their hands. I just feel like I want to be one of the people who tells the larger truth, but then if nobody wants to hear it, that's kind of sad. But I don't know. I'm hopeful, but it's easier, I think, just to get through the day with your head down.
Do you think that's the role of the comedian, to tell the larger truth?
Oh, of course. Well, that's what you try to do. And you try to get a reaction where they let go, where they go, ha, which is really a spiritual sound. And it's a response that they can't, it's a response they can't control. And it's a freeing, healing one too. So of course you're trying to get that, but sometimes when you're up there and you're following 5 guys that just did dick and shit jokes, it's hard to get an audience who even gives a shit to hear any kind of concept, which is a lot of comedy now is like, oh my God, it's the chronic masturbators comedy. I'm too old. I'm too old for it. I don't like it. And I'm like, where can I go to just talk to people who want to think?
Yeah.
So I've done a few shows and they were fun. And I wouldn't get off the stage. I've stayed on there for 2.5 hours. But yeah, it was fun. But I'm old now. I don't know.
But you look back at some of those comedians who made you think, like, to me, America has produced some of the greatest of those.
Of course.
George Carlin.
Oh, God, yeah, I knew him a little bit too.
Yeah, Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks, so great. Unbelievably great, and it still stands up too.
Yeah.
Everything Bill Hicks said stands up now.
Well, especially now, because I think those guys, they were pushing back against the extremes of their day, and you're going to have extremes of our day now that need to be challenged, including through comedy, right?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of comics I think that are going to get there. They're on the right path of comedy, and it's exciting because I like to go see somebody work an audience like that, because it does take a lot of guts and a lot of head, you know, a lot of brains. That you thought up that you're selling a concept on stage, which that used to be back in my day. We could sell a concept and then do 10 jokes within that concept. But now it's just, I was jacking off in this. Oh, God.
Do you feel that's almost like going back to the way comedy was before you and others made it different?
Yeah, it's back to ground. It's back to, you know, it's back to the muck, where you go back to the muck, you know, and then the little amoeba crawls out of the mud, and then it becomes a whatever, and whatever, it grows into something else. It's back at the test case, you know, in the primordial muck.
Why is that, Roseanne? Why do you think it's back in the muck?
Well, people want relief, and you know they want to laugh, and
do you not think
that's what they're laughing at?
Yeah, but do you not think it's also because everything was so restricted for a long time, and every word you said, like in your case, you know, you say something gets totally misrepresented, taken out of context, and people got tired of that. So now it's almost the release and the relief that you're talking about is to hear someone say the weirdest or the worst thing.
Yeah,
that you
there's
can
that,
imagine.
but that's going back to the muck.
I totally
think great things will come out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm watching like a few comics that I'm like I had one here the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I love that. I can't wait to see how that hits. You know. So there's some coming up great ones.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good point, because, you know, I think it's very easy to be in a moment and think that it's going to last forever. But all it ever is a moment, and life changes, as it always does, because nothing stays the same. So at the moment, we are in this point where you can go on stage and say the word retard 6 times and get a standing ovation. And maybe a Netflix deal.
Yeah, well, that is backlash from being held down.
Yeah. But eventually something more interesting is going to come of that, because it's like being a 13-year-old boy. You know,
someone's just like that. Yeah.
You know, if people say that when you're, and then eventually you go, all right, but what else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not very sophisticated, but out of that will come something, I guess, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Because comedy is a great art form. It really is the last free speech art form. And it was sad to see it
suppressed like that.
Yeah, it was horrible. But they always said, when I was coming up in my day, back when I was alive, they always say, when there's a Republican in the White House, comedy gets great. But now it's kind of a different time, so, but it still might be true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because these comics I've seen, they're smart. They're very smart. I think people will start going, I got to hear some smart comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, because you need, it's, you know, it's like eating fast food. Look, there's nothing wrong with eating fast food. You can go once in a while and it's fine, you know, and it hits a spot. But eventually you want something substantive. You want something that really nourishes your soul.
Right. Like women comics, I don't give a shit about your sex life, okay? You're a bore. I don't give a who you're having sex with or your sex feelings or any of your body parts. I don't give a Say something smart. I'm sick of that shit too. My sex life, Christ. Any goat can have sex. Get off it.
Say something interesting. So to you, what is interesting? Is it the human condition? I mean, obviously the human condition. Culture as a whole?
I think the mass brainwash we're under is hilarious. And there should be tons of jokes about that. Remember when you thought, I mean, just the brainwashing, it just gets, I have a joke, well, I shouldn't even say it on here, but just
Why not?
Huh?
Say it on here.
Come on.
Well, I say, boy, I remember back in my day when you used to get molested, it was your fault. My mom was like, I told you not to go near that old Joe when he comes down here on his bicycle. Didn't I tell you not to go by old Joe? Yep. And now it's like, I mean, things move in a more just, and they move for justice and intelligence, I think. So it's good we don't do that to kids anymore, but, everything's just fucked up and stupid.
You're talking about mass brainwashing. Like, what do you mean by that, Roseanne?
Well, I think everything's mass brainwashing. So,
But
I have since I was maybe born, because I would go like, it ain't like that. I would just look around and go, it ain't like that. I see it. That was probably part of why I got mental illness. Because they were talking about, I remember when I was little, and they're always talking about God is good, God's in control of everything. And then, God sees you, he sees everything you do. And then I see, them doing bad shit, stealing things, lying. And I'd be like, what is this? I couldn't make any sense of it. Why you said one thing and then turn around and did the exact opposite of that thing, and then turn around again and say the you said before you did the bad thing again. I think that's hilarious. Because obviously you're disconnected from your mouth. Your brain don't hook up to your mouth or something. It's all a kerfuffle, and nobody even knows what they're doing half the time. They're only doing what they think everybody else is doing, and they're wrong. Those people ain't doing that.
Yeah.
You're just lost, and you're a fucking idiot.
I love the way she's looking at you.
Yeah, it reminds me of...
I'm not saying it to you. This is in my head conversations I have with people.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a fucking idiot. You don't even see.
It's okay.
You don't even see, like...
It's all right. It reminds me of Mother.
No, I don't mean you. But
know.
it is Mother, because of my own kids. I'd be like, why are you licking your feet? You just were out in the mud.
Yeah.
Why would you want to lick your, you know what I mean? It is a mother thing.
It is.
I want to gather everybody, make them see something together so they will behave correctly. I can't let go of it. It must be a mom thing. I just wish people would let reality really in there deep and see it. See reality for once instead of what you're told to see. See the real reality. It's pretty amazing when you see it. Like when I see Doge, I'm like, this is friggin' amazing. This is messianic. I think this is really a new thing for the world and for America. To go to where you're going to actually have accountability for the money, that thrills me. And somebody like Musk and Trump to have thought, hey, it's time for accountability in the money. It's so basic and genius. It should have been done 500,000 years ago. But we're there on the cusp of this great awakening and accountability. And wow, maybe I can dream or create or synthesize or be part of a whole new reality that makes sense for all the people, not just a few at the expense of the many, but all the people. We could have something that made sense for once. I'm hopeful for that.
Roseanne, on that happy note, the question we always end the interview with is, what's the one thing we're not talking about that we should be?
Well, I think that one thing that we're not talking about that we should be is money and the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland and how that all works. The central bank of all central banks, how that all works and how it affects everything. I think we should be talking about that. And it's right next to CERN. If that don't say everything, it's a scary time. But human intelligence, I think, is connected to God, and God's like making us be smarter. We don't want to, but he's making us. So I'm hopeful for that too.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. You have a great podcast on Rumble that people should check out.
Oh, thank you.
And head on over to Substack where Roseanne's going to answer your questions.
Oh, boy.
You gave most of the actors on the Roseanne and the Connor show their break. Did any of them try to stand up to the network for firing you?